Okay, it's ridiculous. I don't know why we constantly fucking talk about this shit without actually recognizing the other side of this. This is not a defense of Bernie. I already said his position is embarrassing. Okay,
reporting from the Middle East for years. Do you have a sense of how that region now views the United States? Because this is an unprecedented military action by the United States. While we've had tension with Iran for all these years, we've never bombed.
Right. I think there was a moment, when Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump were kind of dangling this idea of regime change. That is anathema to people in this region. They remember the invasion of Iraq. They remember the hundreds of thousands of people and the wave of terror and sectarianism and chaos that was unleashed as a result of that. So absolutely, that's abhorrent for people to hear in this region. But honestly, Iran is not the big issue right now in this region with America. Gaza is what is tearing people apart.
I mean, she's right. She's right. This is like a refreshing change of pace. Why do they call her the actress on Twitter? It's because she's done some really fucking lame things. She is a major careerist. She's a major careerist, and because of that, she will sometimes do things that are so ridiculous. But once again, I call balls and strikes. And while on the one hand, she like did that thing in Syria where she went to the prison and was like, oh, this person has been released from prison. Like this person is finally seeing the light for the first time after years and years. And it turned out he was like a fucking literal Assad torturer that was hiding in the prison cell. Okay. And that is so unacceptable overall to do as like a person who clearly wants to win a Pulitzer Prize. It just shows me that she is so ambitious that she's willing to entertain things that in other circumstances would ruin the career prospects of any journalist, right? She's an opportunist clout goblin. But also on the other hand, because she is a fucking major careerist, there are instances where she does spectacular things, like when she snuck into Gaza. Clarissa Ward is literally one of the only Western journalists post-October 7 who was able to sneak into Gaza with a medical mission and actually directly interview Palestinian children inside of a fucking field hospital. Okay? So on the other hand, she does that. But it's not because she is, truly invested in this ideologically. It's because she is a very ambitious reporter. And for those of you who say that this was, Israel let her in or all this shit, I don't think so. And even if Israel did, okay, even if Israel knew, and I'm sure they found out quickly after she was there, if you think that she did not put her life on the line, you're out of your fucking mind. She absolutely did. Any sort of footage from Gaza that doesn't go through the Israeli military censor is not allowed, okay? So that's why I say I call balls and strikes. Anyway, let's continue.
Is what is fueling hatred. I cannot even tell you. Every day people come up to me, Stephen, and they say, are they not seeing what we're seeing? Are they not seeing this moonscape? Are they not seeing tens of thousands killed, children starved, the largest cohort of child amputees in the history of modern warfare? Are they not seeing this? And it has eroded their faith in international institutions, in international humanitarian law, and in any notion that the U.S. is some kind of a guiding light or a beacon of human rights. And that really is a far more...
No, this has got to be Westerners that are saying that, because no fucking Arab, no Muslim, no Christian, literally no one in that region would ever go, oh my God, I used to trust the international the international rule-based order, but now I don't know. I'm not so sure. Yeah. Anyone that lives outside, anyone that lives in the periphery or lives directly outside of the American umbrella of protection, they've been known. They've known what the fucking international rule-based order looks like.
More animating issue to most people in the Middle East right now than this latest issue, a round of hostilities with Iran.
Also, she said Gaza is she said the catastrophe in Gaza is a real issue, yeah, it's not the catastrophe in Gaza. That's a part of it, but it's actually Israel. Okay. Everyone in this region understands that Israel is the attack dog, the incredibly violent attack dog of the United States of America. It is not, these people are not dying to earthquakes. They're not dying to natural disasters. They are dying with American munitions that Israeli airplanes are dropping on top of the Palestinian children. Care to comment on this? Asked Hasan if he wanted me to call in from Twinks v Dolls, and he just said a bunch of slurs. True. That's what happened. What is this?
I think that, and I was not a great math. So when a pendulum goes this far, right, when it drops back, it doesn't go back to the middle. It keeps going. So you don't have, President Trump is not a recipe for us to have a president from the Brookings Institution next time, right? For some sort of moderate,
What does the pendulum have to do with fucking math, by the way? That's funny.
We're going to reason together.
211 journalists have died in Gaza since October 7th, mostly Palestinian, but some Western also. So yes, she literally put her life on the line to report. Yeah, I'm not discounting that at all. That was my point. You're literally reiterating the point that I was making about like why Clarissa Ward on the one hand is like ambitious, careerist, does like things that normally would get her fired, but also on the other hand, her ambition does lead to some incredible reporting from time to time. Anyway, when this guy's saying it's a pendulum swinging in the other direction, it's just like a fluke. That's the point that they're trying to make.
The pendulum will probably move pretty far that way. And I think, I never thought I would say this, but
ironically enough, Trump would have never even been a pendulum swinging in the rightward direction if Bernie Sanders had made it out the fucking primary in 2016. That is the reality. That is the truth. That is precisely why this is not a pendulum swinging in one direction or the other. This is simply people. If there is a pendulum, it's people that want, there is no pendulum, but it's people that want something different. Okay. And if Trump is going to offer the death to these institutions that these people have been desperate for, because these institutions clearly don't fucking work for them, and they're experiencing that, and they're angry about that, and they're understandably resentful about that. If the Democrats won't do that, then they'll go for Trump. And that's precisely why they went for Trump twice, even after he was the fucking president for 4 years.
The longer President Trump governs the way he's governing, the more likely he's making the presidency of AOC. I really do.
Israel has done is so unconscionable. If I had the opportunity, I would join Hamas. Okay, that tweet exists in my mind. That I think about that. I think about that tweet all the time. Okay, just a straightforward Australian Deborah being like, "I am an aunt. I am a fucking grandmother, and I would join Hamas." If I had the physical opportunity to do so. That is an indication that things have shifted so dramatically. This doesn't mean that like you can still get away with even contextualizing why people resist to Israel and also run a political campaign simultaneously. You still can't do that. This is the one. Yeah, sorry, it was even older. I'm a 73-year-old woman in Australia. After seeing what Israel has done and continues to do, if I was capable, I'd join Hamas. I think this tweet was deleted, but Israeli defense officials estimate that Hamas has filled its military ranks and now has 40,000 combatants. I am a 73-year-old woman in Australia. After seeing what Israel has done and continues to do, if I was capable, I'd join Hamas. I'm a 71-year-old woman in the U.S. I took down my first reply to your post because apparently here in the U.S. a non-citizen can be detained, possibly disappear for having a thought like that. Maybe next week or maybe tomorrow that danger will include citizens too. Free Palestine. I wondered if I should take it down after I saw it was getting a lot of likes. Hamas is a designated terror org here. The Z lobby is powerful and taking journalists to court. I'm a children's writer. Partner suggested I leave it up. Vive the resistance. Dog, it's fucking over. Just give it up. It's like that Gucci bag that's like falling apart. Just drop it, dude. Just drop it. We'll act like you were never there, okay? We won't punish you for it. Just drop it. Just drop it quietly. Start talking about how much you love Palestine. You know what I mean? Like, just drop it. Just because it's so fucking over. And there are still people that are desperately clinging on to this fucking failed notion that you can somehow put this to rest. Here's another great example. This is a big story from today that I've been meaning to talk about. My boys, the Irish Kneecap group, was played to a massive Glastonbury crowd. It turns out when you tell a IRA group, okay, named after a practice of shooting collaborators of the British occupation in the knee, when you try to fucking silence them because they said fuck Israel, free Palestine, okay, when you try to literally go after them as terrorists, when you actively go after all of their sold out concerts in their European tour and try to shut those fucking concerts down, it turns out that only creates more support for them. Okay? Wow. Who would have fucking thought? Especially because their position is literally the overwhelmingly popular position. Now, the BBC weirdly pulled away from the Kneecap live stream, as Coachella had done as well. Okay, remember, Kneecap did their first week at Coachella and they were live streamed. That performance was live streamed. Kneecap's tent was changed during the second week and they didn't live stream it. That's why I went to Coachella and I live streamed their performance, if you recall. Okay, and basically what ended up happening was the BBC thought best to not show the fucking the fucking Kneecap concert. So they instead showed Bob Vylan's concert that was playing at the same time. Well, it turns out there wasn't really a better concert to pull to if you wanted to if you wanted to show how little support the Free Palestine movement was getting at Glastonbury. This is what happened.
Free, free. Free, free. Free, free. Alright, but have you heard this one though? Death, death to the IDF. 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 Hell yeah, from the river to the sea, Palestine must be, will be, inshallah, it will be free.
Oh no! Oh no! Oh, they were on before Kneecap on the same stage. So the BBC was showing this, and then they cut the program away from Kneecap. My bad. Brother, it's fucking over. It's got the BBC logo. You got a fucking artist going, have you heard this one? Like, he just goes, yeah, free Palestine, but have you heard this? I gotta run it back. It's got the BBC logo in the corner. Beautiful.
Free, free. Free, free. Free, free. Alright, but have you heard this one though? Death, death to the IDF. Death, death to the IDF. Death, death to the IDF.
BBC logo in the corner. Cinema. Kino. Okay? Fucking hell.
Death, death to the IDF. Death, death to the IDF.
I am so disappointed. I'm shaking my head viciously. For those of you at home that are simply listening and not paying close attention, I want to tell you what I'm doing physically right now. I'm going, not good. I'm finger wagging and my head is shaking. I'm going, no. And of course, predictably, Avon and Somerset police were aware of the comments made by the acts on the West Hall stage at Glastonbury Festival this afternoon. Video evidence will be assessed by officers to determine whether any offences may have been committed that would require a criminal investigation. That's right. Fucking hell. Fucking hell. Do you got a license for that? Do you got a license to say death to the IDF, sir? Fucking hell. Disavow. Not allowed. Calling the Met on Bob Vylan from an Iggy Pop gig. Incredible scenes. My sister had the misfortune of seeing him as a support act for Iggy Pop a month ago. He was absolutely vile. She's put a complaint into the Met Police about him, but nothing as of yet. Hysterical. Yeah, but have you heard this one though? Is so nutty. Is so fucking nutty. Okay, I had not heard that one. I will admit, I've been to many pro-Palestinian rallies. I've spoken at marches. marches. That one I had not heard before. He actually surprised me. When I saw that this morning, I lost my fucking mind. Okay. Yeah, this is a really funny thing that also took place. So here's Mike Isaac from New York Times tech reporter Mike. BBC refused to live stream Kneecap's Glastonbury set, an unprecedented choice. So Helen from Wales took things into her own hands. Congrats to the BBC for managing to Streisand effect this thing into the stratosphere. What ended up happening is Helen from Wales held her phone for an hour to live stream Kneecap. She says she thinks it was important and got 1.7 million likes.
Thank you ever so much from all of us here at Glastonbury. The funny thing is, I'll just stand here a minute. I think I've got a burn on my finger from holding my phone, which overheated. I got my battery pack here. That sort of saves the day. If you enjoyed the video and you were grateful, please just give me a follow. I got lots of important things to say. I really, really appreciate it. And I hope you've appreciated.
Kneecap commented on our TikTok vid, this is piracy. You shouldn't condone it. I mean, technically, I did the same thing, no? Bob Villain at the concert also said this.
Shut the fuck up! Heard you want your country back. You can't have that. Heard you want your country back.
Dude, what? What is happening? What is happening in England? What the fuck is this? Bro, you got white ladies going, heard you want your country back. Shut the fuck up. What is going on, brother? Oh my Lord.
Country back. Shut the fuck up! Heard you want your country back. Shit, me too.
The sun came out and things go mad over there. Yeah, British people see the sun one time and they're talking about global jihad. Yo, my bad, British people. I didn't know it was like that.
Heard you want your country back. Shut the fuck up. Heard you want your country back. You can't have that. The only place I know, stolen right under my nose by ignorant scum, trying to lay claim to a land that ain't theirs anyway. Wait, what did you say? Heard you want your country back. Shut the fuck up. Heard you want your country back. You can't have that. Heard you want your country back.
That's crazy. That's so
Shut
sick.
the fuck up. Heard you want your country back. Well, shit, me too. Heard you want your country back. Heard you want your country back. Shut the fuck up. Heard you want your country back. Heard you want your country back. Can't have that. Heard you want your country back. Heard you want your country back. Shut the fuck up. Heard you want your country back. But you cannot have that.
Dude, I can't wait for the fucking liberal optics enjoyers to be like, sir, this is really going to scare a bunch of white supremacists. You shouldn't be saying that. You shouldn't be saying that. Why would you say that? This is going to make people scared. And it's like, meanwhile, it's making you scared. You also don't agree with this sentiment. You also agree with the fucking white nationalists. And you also want him to shut the fuck up for that same reason, but you're too embarrassed to admit that is the actual position that you hold, because you don't want to look like the toothless inbred fucking England Defense League freaks, you know? Dude, this demographic is something that I have not ever seen in my life. I didn't know Glastonbury was like that, but this is all like if I saw this crowd, I would be a little bit afraid. You know what I mean? Like, this crowd invites, like, if I saw this crowd, I would assume falsely that this is like a bunch of gammons, you know? I'm wrong. I'm willing to admit that I'm wrong. Like, this is a U2 crowd, you know what I mean? There's like too many fucking gray hair people in there. It turns out these guys are all crazy. White people, I wasn't familiar with your game. Yeah, I didn't realize it was really white boy. It was really white boy jihad summer, like, straight up. Here's another piece from the Kneecap concert.
Anybody going to Rod Stewart tomorrow? Oh, why the fuck was I? Did I miss something? I mean, the man's older than Israel.
Big Celtic fan
Fucking
as well.
Google it.
I'm on for Dan.
Hey, Rod the Prod. I want to hear one thing. With this many people, this is the biggest crowd we have ever played in front. In front? Or behind? Or behind. So one time, let me hear everybody. How the fuck did everybody do it? How the fuck everybody do it?
That's sick. Another banger speech. And then
But I have an advice for young people in Europe. I know you want to free Palestine, you want to free Congo, you want to free Sudan.
The youngest son of Afrobeat pioneer and legend Fela Kuti.
You want to free Iran. There's a new one every week. Free Europe. Free Europe from right-wing extremism. Free Europe from fascism. Free Europe from racism. Free Europe from imperialism. When you do this job, as soon as you do this job, Gaza will be free. Congo will be free. Sudan will be free. Iran, forget about us. Don't worry about it. Free Europe.
Dude, I do think that this level of unprecedented, open, overt anti-militarism, anti-imperialism, anti-Zionist sentiment would not happen if people weren't so fucking pissed off and frustrated with their own country's governments and their lack of interest in even doing right by their own citizens. I will say it's years and years and years of austerity that have made people go, enough is enough. Why the fuck are you spending all your money killing brown people over there, killing black people over there, instead of, fixing the potholes, fixing public transit? Kuti is not new to this. Look up his father, please. No, I know. Dude, listen, just because I don't listen to music doesn't mean that I don't know about Afrobeat, okay? Chill. Calm down. I'm a cultured individual. People are realizing that the lack of intervention tells people that genocide is necessary and they don't like it. The UK government condemned. The Culture Secretary has spoken to the BBC Director General to seek an urgent explanation about what due diligence and carried out ahead of the Bob Villain performance. Oh no, what the fuck? fat law. Glastonbury has become a festival of hate today and descended into barbaric chants against Israel and the Jewish people. Glastonbury is a festival I once called home a dozen or so times. I attended. I made magazines on site. I led a team of scores of talented writers and photographers with the NME. I went as part of a team, BBC, as part of Billboard, and as part of Q, as part of Vulture. I grew up there. I am not just heartbroken. I am dismayed. I am disgusted. Emily Avis, you should go to Re'im and see what happened at a music festival in southern Israel on the 7th of October 2023. What happened to you? A Jew X. I'm Fatlaw, and this is my take. A lot of yous are making fun of me for my natural, organic Middle Eastern accent. Everyone knows this is how people sound in the Levant. I'm Fatlaw. The music festival thing that they did to Kneecap was also so funny because it's like, oh dude, what the fuck? It's especially messed up that this music festival would say Free Palestine after what happened at Nova Music Festival. It's like, okay, well, it was like slammed in the ass cheeks of a fucking concentration camp. You're not wrong. There were harrowing sights that came out of the Nova Music Festival, but like Palestinians are being ethnically cleansed in broad daylight. You know what I mean? People are going to fucking eventually say, hey, this is really fucked up. And they're going to say it everywhere. They're not just going to say it on television. They're not going to say it they're going to say it at music festivals too. Okay. Visegrad. Apart from chanting death to the IDF in front of 200,000 people at Glastonbury Festival, Bob Villain also complained about having been forced to work for fucking Zionists at a record label early on in his career. The entire thing was broadcasted live by the BBC to millions of people. It's amazing.
One of the jobs that I did, I worked for a record label, and it's funny because when I worked there, boss of the record label, we would talk every so often, and he would speak very strongly about his support for Israel. Treading on that line, do you know what I mean? He was treading on that line. And then this letter, or this list of names came out recently of people trying to stop our mate's Kneecap from performing here today. And who do I see on that fucking list of names but that bald-headed cunt I used to fucking work for? So look, we've done it all right? From working in bars to working for fucking Zionists. And if we can do this, I promise you lot, you can do absolutely anything that you put your mind to. I'm telling you this, all right? Don't give up.
It's really funny. You know what it's like to be like, oh, you can't criticize Israel. October 7 happened. Is literally like saying you can't say America has no right to go to war and invade Iraq because 9/11 happened. Okay. It's fucking ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. Like the tragedy of 9/11 pales in comparison to the metric ton of violence that we brought about this region unjustifiably. Okay. It is nothing in comparison to what America did in Afghanistan. It is nothing in comparison to what America did in Iraq. Suck my fucking dick. Okay. Except Americans do believe that. No, they don't. No, the average American doesn't fucking believe that. You're wrong. The overwhelming majority of Americans at this point literally understand that especially Iraq, was a major mistake. So no, I don't think that that's even the case. It took 20 years and many Americans arrived at that position selfishly. Okay. Iraq was not a mistake. It was a lie. No, I know. It was death and destruction that was completely unacceptable, both on the virtues of death and destruction in general, but also it was built around a lie. It was deliberate. It was a deliberate attempt. And there are still plenty of Americans who don't care about the death toll, but only fucking cover this or only have the sentiment around how much money was wasted. You know what I mean? But the notion that people are pro-Iraq war is wrong. Donald Trump won against the Iraq war and won against Hillary Clinton. He literally used Hillary Clinton's support for the Iraq war as a major blunder. Trump, that helped Trump win. What the fuck is, I don't want to watch this. If this was Glastonbury, it's usually quite corporatized now. So can imagine there's a couple tech handlers and production directors sweating heavily when this guy was on stage. Yeah. So they're chanting death to the IDF. What is this? Look at this crowd. Oh yeah. Here's what Kneecap's crowd looked like. The founder of Glastonbury, Michael Eavis, said, people that don't agree with the politics of the event can go somewhere else. He added, people that agree with the politics of the event can pay me 400 quid to get in. I think this is a joke. I don't think he actually said that. Did he actually say that? Irish rapper Mo Farah, an alleged Hezbollah supporter, may soon headline sold out U.S. tour. Yep. This is also happening in the fall, and I'm very stoked for this. I wonder if America will stop him from doing this. I'm actually worried that Kneecap's sold out fall tour is they're going to potentially fucking try to stop it. Look how desperate Azealia Banks is. Oh, she's like fucking, she is so insane. Like she became this like Palantir advocate. I don't know what happened. I mean, she's always been like a psycho, but recently she's also been like a fucking really annoying and very obviously like an fake advertising doing psycho. She's doing an ad every other week for Palantir. Yes, he did actually say it in support of Kneecap. Glastonbury founder says festival critics can go somewhere else after Kneecap furor. Hell yeah. To your point, look how many Americans believe the lies in 2002 compared to now. In 2019, majorities of Americans and U.S. military veterans said the Iraq war was not worth fighting in 2019. In 2002, large majorities of Americans said Iraqi WMD and links to terrorism would justify U.S. military response. There you go. This doesn't exist anymore. Like this level of popular sentiment in the absence of, this is why I say, in the absence of like a 9/11 style incident, and even then, I don't think they'll ever reach this level of broad public support for American military incursions. But the sad state of affairs is, the scary reality is that they don't need it. The Iranian operation already fucking explained that. The Iranian operation already showed that, okay? The people's position on this doesn't necessarily matter. But having said that, who knows? I think that as long as there is enough of a fuss made by massive swaths of the population, I think it will make it potentially too difficult for America to engage in these sorts of affairs. It will at least like cause them to recalculate. Anyway, well, I hope Bob Villain is happy. He's not big, he's not clever, and this afternoon his mean words about the IDF have made David Lammy cry. David's still going to have supper tonight, but he's not going to enjoy it quite as much. How dare you, sir? You've made David Lammy quite unhappy.
And quickly by talking about Zohran Mamdani and just to bring the conversation to a full circle and just taking a look at how much of a threat he is perceived by a lot of people in the political class in the US and as well as in the media, because he's been attacked from every angle over the last couple of days, and the attacks are vicious, and I think it betrays a sense that a lot of people feel threatened by what he represents and what the generation that has voted him in potentially represents. And I wonder what you think about that.
Well, that's a large question, and I don't have the time to go through it in the detail that it warrants. I would say that Mamdani, he represents almost in a pure form the class struggle. You know, the famous line by Karl Marx, the beginning of the Communist Manifesto, the first line is, "The history of all hitherto existing society is the history of class struggles." The history of all hitherto existing societies is the history of class struggles. And we're seeing in the Mamdani campaign, it's clearing the air. If you remember when the Bernie Sanders challenge to the existing system emerged, it got the powers that be tried to confuse the stakes. So all of these woke people, they started to criticize Bernie for being weak on the black question, weak on racism, weak on reparations, weak on the women question. They said Bernie bros. That was how they called it. That was all men, all white men. Of course, Bernie's campaign was all about the class struggle. Every night when he came out, it was attacking the billionaire class. It was attacking Goldman Sachs. It was attacking big pharma. But both the Republican and the Democratic Party both tried to obscure what was going on by turning it into an identity politics struggle. So the Republicans represented the oppressed white working class who are being oppressed by identity politics, and affirmative action and diversity, equity, inclusion. And the Democratic Party tried to turn it into also an identity politics campaign. We represent black people.
Yes, I know. The Gaza doc that BBC refused to air, Zeteo is going to host it. I know. I saw.
Mexican, Hispanic people, sexual minorities. So each of them pretended they wanted to obscure the real issue. The real issue was a class struggle. And Bernie was very emphatic about it.
Yeah, the left shot itself in the foot with the identity politics push in 2016 and 2020. Guys, this conversation can quickly turn reactionary. The problem with the Democratic Party is not that they care about gay people, trans people, black people, whatever. The problem with the Democratic Party is that they don't care about these groups, and they simply use these groups cynically as a defense mechanism to attack both the Republican Party, which also doesn't care about these groups and actively will campaign on not caring about these groups, but more importantly, against their left flank. Okay, this kind of cynical weaponization of identity politics is gross, and people recognize it as fake and phony. It is no different than what Target does every fucking Pride Month, except for this past one. Notice how none of these corporations that normally would do Pride Month shit are not doing it now. I wonder why. Okay, people understand when you're just, being a phony, when you're faking it, when you're just being a fake ally. Okay, and simply using it as a way to push out actually progressive left-wing candidates. If someone genuinely cares about these groups, then that's great. I don't think you should cast aside defending these groups at all. I certainly don't. And the Democrats shouldn't either. The problem is that is supposed to be a position that you arrive at, or a position that you convince people on after you have garnered support with policies that most Americans, the overwhelming majority of Americans, can recognize will help them. And you have to be able to earnestly communicate that you are in favor of these policies, which is precisely why you have to apply the principle of universality to these positions. You have to have class first politics. I have never strayed away from this position. Okay, class reductionism is an issue in this community. Please stop. No, there is no real class reductionism. Okay, unless someone is antagonistic to marginalized populations and simply only care about like class first politics, even then it's still better than what the Democrats are doing, where they fake claim that they care about fucking, in the words of Norm Finkelstein, sexual minorities. Okay, class first politics is still better than what the Democrats are doing. Okay, but even then, the class reductionism attitude is so stupid. Unless someone is antagonistic to marginalized communities, class first politics is not a bad thing. It is the best method. Okay, I noticed after the FD Signifier election analysis video was dropped, I don't even know if FD Signifier would agree with a lot of his assessments from that video that came immediately after the election. I had my criticisms of that as well. I have always told you that the best possible way to go about this is what Zoran did and what I try to do as well, which is to make an argument that you want Medicare for all, healthcare for every single person, unconditionally, right? And then when people go, well, does that mean trans people get healthcare too? You say, yes, of course they get fucking healthcare too. Do you not want the free healthcare? If someone is that transphobic that they will say, no, I don't want free healthcare if trans people are going to get it, then, good luck. That person is probably not convincible. But you can convince a lot of people that are in the margins that don't necessarily care about trans people all that much, but certainly care about their own personal living conditions, their own standards improving. That is how you're supposed to do it. You are wrong. It's dangerous to bring the right to exist of other people to the forefront of politics. What? You guys are misunderstanding this. Chatters with neoliberal latent thought can't conceptualize the difference between politics and policy. Yes. One of the things that angered me all the fucking time with with both of Bernie's campaigns was how much the Democrats hammered him on, like, how racist he is. Bernie's racist. Why? Because he doesn't speak enough about black issues. And what they were doing was unironically racist, because every time Bernie talks about alleviating poverty, he's talking about black issues too. Okay. But for the Democratic Party, the only way that they think you can communicate to black people is by directly talking about criminal justice reform, which was also a primary part of Bernie's campaigning as well. But it's fucking ridiculous how unironically racist and cynical this kind of pandering is. Like, you think all black people, the only thing that black people care about is criminal justice reform? What the fuck are we doing? Of course that's important. And of course that's a policy that should be discussed. But you think black people don't experience issues with lack of access to healthcare? When Bernie says, I want Medicare for all, that's also for black people. As a matter of fact, for black and brown people, it's even more significant because they live in underserved communities. If they have a higher likelihood of being in the grips of poverty, those kinds of universal policies unironically end up helping black and brown communities even more. That's it. I've said this before, where the if you don't first make an argument that is broad, if you don't first come up with policies that are class-based, you are going to keep losing. Because even violence at the systematic level, like the structural violence that people experience, like poverty, the systematic violence that people experience, they experience on the class level. This is precisely the reason why in the United States of America, while a black person, no matter how wealthy they are, can experience racism, obviously the condition of a black woman like Oprah is far better than a white homeless person. That's class, okay? That's class. And there was a point in time in American history where a white homeless person would not trade places with the wealthiest black person, for sure. But that's not the case any longer. This doesn't mean that black people, or this doesn't mean that like racism doesn't exist anymore. Systemic racism is still very much a major part of how people experience how people experience it in their day to day, okay, in their normal existence, okay. So a white homeless person can have better health than a black person. Wait, what? Politics, huh? So a white homeless person can have a better health than a black person? What? Black people in this day and age that experience systematic racism, okay, are still experiencing it from the perspective of class violence. Aside from the stigmas that still exist, aside from stereotypes and stigma and all this other, all of these other like systematic forms of oppression that lead to a distorted outcome for black people in like the criminal justice system, for example. Black people and white people consume drugs at the same rate. Black people go to prison. Black people have a higher likelihood of going to prison or being stopped at a police stop and actually receiving longer penalties than white people do for the same exact crimes, okay? This kind of stuff is still also still a form of class violence, okay? It is impossible to separate class from race. That's it. You always have to start off with a class first attitude. You always have to start off with a class first statement, or with a class first position. Intersectionality starts with class. This doesn't mean that you turn a blind eye to systemic forms of discrimination. Of course not. But class is at the root of this.
Now with Mamdani, that sort of identity politics is not going to stick with him. You can't say a fellow named Mamdani is weak on race questions, ethnic questions, religious questions. It's not going to work.
This is where Norm is wrong. They have said that, and they started doing that, but Cuomo lost. One very cynical way that the Democrats do this is they'll weaponize the black boomers, okay? They will quite literally say, oh, well, black people are voting for this person. Black people want this person. So you must be racist if you don't. They literally did this with Joe Biden. If you remember, they did this with Joe Biden when people were like, hey, Joe Biden, you need to drop out. You're too old. The media was like, oh, y'all gonna learn today. Black people want Joe Biden. You must be racist for wanting someone else to be running for president as opposed to Joe Biden.